Welcome. We're looking here at a big sliding gate operated by Tau in Italy. It's called the BIG18. Now it's designed for fairly big gates up to 2.5 ton. The obvious, it can also be used on gates on hills that may only be 500 kilo, up to a ton, something like that, or even more, but because of the hill, require a fairly powerful motor and a very strong and robust gearbox. So that's the thinking behind the BIG18 and why it sits in our range as it does. It could be used perhaps in a residential situation where you do have that big hill. Certainly in a commercial situation, it has quite a good duty cycle at 55%. And obviously in the industrial gate market, it's going to fit in quite well. It's a very solid build, not huge in terms, not when you compare it to a lot of industrial sliding gate motors. It's probably about 1/3 of the size of others. Where it differs a little bit from most on offer in Australia is it's just a standard speed operator. Okay, so it's not designed as a fast operator. Personally, not a big fan of fast operators, but that's just a personal opinion. I like gates to move quite slowly, where you have good control, and that's what this operator is all about. Now, it is a 3-phase motor, so what I'm going to show you shortly is how we can adapt it to single phase if we wish. Obviously, if you've got 3-phase, if you've got an industrial site or a commercial site and 3 phases available, it's very, very simple to set up. Just simply bring your 3-phase power in and everything is pretty much pre-wired for you. Other benefits, very, very robust gearbox, big, strong motor, 3-phase motor, mechanical clutch, so you can adjust the clutch on top of the motor. Nice easy manual override, stainless steel cover, which you won't find on most operators until you get into the industrial range. And I think the key point here is you say, so why exactly is it in the range? Well, because it's less than half the price of other industrial operators. So, and all it's missing is that speed. Logic control board is built in, runs at the standard 10 meters per minute, which is pretty sort of standard speed, and in my opinion you don't need very much more. The obvious problem that a lot of people would have with it being 3-phase is the fact that they may not have 3-phase power. Well, in a moment we'll have a look at an inverter, and basically what the inverter will do is allow you to bring single phase in, and it converts the power to 3-phase, not directly into it, but you'll see a little bit later on, just with a couple of wires we can use single phase to run this 3-phase motor. So what we end up with is all the benefits that 3-phase offers us. We end up with a huge torque. Purely by nature, it's married to an industrial gearbox, and it's just robust. And when you get this thing set up right, it will go for years and years like this. So that's sort of the BIG18 in a nutshell. And what we're going to do next is we'll have a quick look at the inverter and explain a little bit about them. We'll then look at the setup using the inverter. Obviously, if it's 3-phase power coming in, you've got nothing to look at. But we're going to look at the setup using the inverter, and then we'll just run it a few times so you can get an idea of the operation. Okay. This is look. They've got various names that people use, from variable frequency drive. There's a couple of other names that are used, but and look, we can vary the frequency on this drive unit, but we're going to use it in this instant just to simply bring single phase in and drive our three-phase motor. These have been used in gate operators for many years now. Just the main benefit, well, the early benefits was being able to use single phase and turn it into three phase, but of late they're used more so to be able to adjust the speed. Okay, so on some of the more advanced industrial motors, we can adjust the speed, the startup speed, the slowdown speed, the startup time, the slowdown time, the overall speed. So you can have different speeds for opening and closing and things like that. And it's true that you can do that, or you can use this to do that with this motor. However, that's not where I'm going. I'm going to show you purely how we converted single phase to three phase. For those that want to get involved in speeding up the motor and changing slowdown speeds and things like that, then you're welcome to do it. It just takes the know-how and the knowledge, but we're not about to tackle that here. As I said, we're going to stick to standard speed and basically just bring our single phase in and have an output to our three-phase motor, and we're going to make the BIG18 work. Okay, so here's the BIG18 minus its cover. It's also had the cover removed from the control board. You can just see the motor hiding behind that, the big gearbox down the bottom, and on the left there we've got our inverter or variable frequency drive, whatever you want to call it. Now, essentially, I'll try here to point out some of the wiring, apart from that push button, which we're going to use simply to operate the thing with in a moment. What we've done is we've got this lead coming up from the bottom here. That's our 240 volts coming in, so our single 240. And we basically brought the 240 into the inverter. Okay, then we've paralleled it up so as it also goes across to run the control board. So that's one simple connection. So our 240 goes into power our inverter and across to our control board. Then on our control board, it comes pre-wired as a three-phase. We simply change one wire and the board is now a single-phase board. The next thing we did is we took our motor wires and we wired our motor wires directly into our inverter. Okay, so that's that white wire there. Okay, those wires go directly to the motor. Okay, and so we've wired them into our inverter. Then the last set of wires we've done is we've taken a set of wires from the control board, through a set of relays there on the right hand side, and then into our inverter again. There are switch wires. So essentially what we're going to do is we'll use our control board as normal. So we'll press our button. It will then send a message via those relays, so from the control board via the relays to the inverter, and it tells it to operate the gate. Okay. Now, anything that occurs, and as you'll see up here, we're going to hit our limit switch shortly, so the board will tell the inverter to slow down and stop. There you go. We'll give that input again, and the board has told the inverter to close the gate. Okay, so it's as simple as that. We've converted the control board to a single phase, and it gives the instructions. So the control board is still operating as it always has, giving the instructions to the inverter and telling the inverter when to deliver that three-phase power to the motor and when to stop the three-phase power. So look again here, we're going to use a remote control to operate the gate now. So same thing, the remote control gives the instructions to the board gives the instructions to the inverter and delivers that three-phase power to operate the gate. Your limit switch work the same, your photocells work the same. The inverter is simply going to follow the instructions from the control board. So if the control board says stop, then the inverter will stop the power to the motor. And closed again. Quite a simple setup. Not too hard to get your head around. So the main changes that we've made is we changed our control board to a single phase, and we've simply rewired so that our motor is wired to the inverter and all our switch wires are giving the inverter instructions. That's basically it. As you can see, it's not a lot of wiring, and once you get your head around it, it's relatively simple to wire, and we have full wiring instructions, obviously. The inverter comes to you preset with our, we load it with our values, or the values which we believe you should be using. Now, for those that are clever and up to speed on these things, you are welcome to change them, but that's entirely up to you, and you will need to make adjustments. Obviously, if you adjust the speed, you have to change the slowdown timers and things like that, to the extent that you may need to extend your limits, for argument's sake, because you've got a motor going that much faster. But our intention is not about speed, it's simply about providing that torque and that power and control. Thanks very much for listening, and let us know if you've got any further questions.